The federal government has no idea what they've just done. They're about to cause the Australian property market to explode.
They know exactly what they're doing. So this video is about the deposit scheme, and we'll get into that in a bit more detail. However, they know what they're doing. They're getting more people into more debt. They're getting people signing up for a lifetime of being a tax slave, and they're also making sure more people are going to pay stamp duty because the deposit requirement is now 5% of the property price, that stamp duty is still full price, and those property prices are going up. The juicy little stamp duty coming in. You can see that a mile away. Exactly what they're doing.
First home buyer incentive scheme, that was supposed to come into force from the 1st of January. They've now brought it forward to the 1st of October. And they've made a few changes, and that's going to have a huge impact on property prices across Australia. Even before this announcement, Cotality or CoreLogic said prices could rise by another 13% by Christmas of 2026. Now, with this new scheme,
you got to take those predictions with an absolute grain of salt. Right? Line up all the predictions. I mean, everyone's taken a punt, but to see how wildly different the actual outcome is from what all these experts, economists, etc., depending on what they're forecasting, actually is what eventuates.
Been brought into force earlier than expected, we could be on the verge of one of the sharpest price rises in history. So I spent the last 24 hours since this announcement came out digging into the data to find out exactly what's happening, how it will impact investors and buyers, and what you need to do before October rolls around. Most people don't actually understand how this new scheme is going to impact property prices. They're assuming it's like a small tweak to an existing policy, but the truth is actually very different. From the 1st of October, the government, like I said, is bringing forward its promise to expand the first home buyer guarantee by 3 months. Okay, 3 months doesn't seem like a lot, but they've actually...
No, because they're broke and they want to get people paying stamp duty. People aren't even talking about this. It's literally, think about it. It is lowering the hurdle for them to get huge amounts of money from punters for the pleasure of being able to buy a home to live in. Biggest scam ever, stamp duty. It might have made sense back when property prices were much lower. Look, I'm talking back when they were like 10 grand in the 60s or something. Not now. Who can justify having to pay, say you buy a $1.3 million house, what's the stamp duty on something like that? 65, 70 grand, 80 grand? I'm just doing some off the top of my head calculations in my calculator brain. How is that reasonable to have to pay that much money when you for anything, just for buying something? It's ridiculous.
Actually expanded the scheme further than they initially promised at the election. So yes, first home buyers will now be able to buy a property for just a 5% deposit, no lender's mortgage insurance.
Line up.
So if you're looking at a property for say $800,000 as a couple, that means that you can now buy that with just $40,000 in savings, no lender's mortgage insurance, and then of course you might still need to pay the stamp duty in whatever state you're looking to buy in. But here's what the federal government has actually changed. They've lifted the price caps, so someone can buy their first home now in Sydney for a price of up to $1.5 million. In Melbourne.
So what's that telling you? The expectation is wholeheartedly that property is going to go up more, and just want to make sure they're cashing in by getting people who think they're being given a good deal to sign up, once again, to generate all these taxes. And then you got the local government stuff, or your council rates and all of that. Call me cynical, but why are they letting this happen? Because they get paid for it. That is why. There was no money in it for them, for the government. They wouldn't be doing it.
It's $950,000. In Brisbane, it's $1 million. This could be a house, this could be an apartment. So by increasing the price caps, people now have more choices. So sure, in Sydney, $1.5 million still doesn't really get you much in terms of freestanding houses, but apartments, you're probably likely to see a bit of a short-term bump up in prices of apartments, as many first home buyers who want to have a place to call their own will seek to get an apartment because they can get in for so little.
And then pay extortionate strata fees. But how crazy is that? Because I was talking about this a while ago, and everyone's like, "Oh, G-Man, you think you're the CEO of Ray White or Century 21, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah." In my opinion, this is, as I said, my opinion, is this is the future of housing in Australia. This generation now is probably, in my opinion, the last generation to have an actual shot, like it's an actual possibility to buy a freestanding house, especially if you don't come from wealth. Like you've been able to do it yourself, scrounge up a deposit for 15 years or, joining forces with a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever floats your boat. In my opinion, these are just going to run away to the point where they're only for the rich. It's not like it's too far away from that already. We saw over the last probably 15, 20 years, a lot of developments in regards to those townhouses. So they're knocking down single and double blocks, putting 4 or 6 townhouses on them, and still charging the full price of a house, essentially. That's been how people have been getting into the market. I think now it's going to go down the next rung, which is going to be apartments. Not that people aren't doing it already, but there's going to be more mass building of apartments, and those apartment prices, they're going to get pushed up to the value of what a house is now, because that is what the market is probably going to be willing to pay. That is what it's going to cost. Have a think about that. That's the deterioration of what you get for your money over time.
House prices in Brisbane, in Melbourne, they're likely to keep rising even more than they already have, especially at that slightly lower budget perspective. Also, we have regional markets where the price caps are way above where their median price point sits. So in many of these regional markets where you can still buy property for $700,000 or $800,000, first home buyers can buy their first home, and it can be a freestanding house there at these particular price caps, and they'll still qualify for the first home buyer incentive scheme. So what do you think is going to happen to prices in some of these potentially lower priced markets? Now, here's what a lot of people are going to get wrong though, right? And I don't want you to misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not saying prices are going to rise everywhere. Remember, just because prices of property in a particular area might qualify for this first home buyer incentive scheme does not mean prices will rise in that area. The area
it'll be all the areas. Let's talk, say, Victoria perspective. I'm Victorian. Frankston, Dandenong, Noble Park. I get places like that. Springvale. I'm trying to think of other ones that haven't been gentrified. You got Oakley and Clayton, which are now very expensive. They used to be, you turn your nose at them, you're a povo if you live there. Say same as Seaford, all those areas along that Golden Mile there, along the south, next to the beach, very expensive now. There aren't too many more areas that I would say are the entry point, a reasonable entry point. So yes, we're going to see a lot more gentrification. And I think we're going to see a lot more development of apartments in those areas that are being gentrified. Like same as Frankston, if you have a look at Frankston on the Penn Highway there, if you're local to the area, you will see that they're building these massive like skyscrapers there. So that's just the future. That's just what it's going to be.
Still needs to meet a number of key criteria, such as more demand from first home buyers and buyers in general, owner-occupiers, versus supply. If people don't want to buy property to move and live there, how are prices going to rise sustainably? We also then need to see that the area has other amenities that will support people wanting to move to the area. Things like good jobs growth, good schools, good amenities that will attract young families to move to the area. So don't just go and think you can buy blindly anywhere. Many people who think, oh, look, I can now afford an investment property in an area where prices for property will meet the first home buyer criteria, and they think that a lot of first home buyers will just go and buy there. Not necessarily. You've got to look deeper than that to see if prices are actually likely to rise, because it's an area first home buyers want to live in. And look, if you want more help with that, check out the link in the description below to get totally for free the
In my opinion, buying investment properties in 2025 in the current settings that we're living in, much better investments out there. Yes, I know people flock to property because it's simple. They buy a house, let it sit there, sell it one day. However, it does burn a hole in your wallet. You're going to be in the in the red. You're going to be in the red from day one for many, many years. Just on the cash flow perspective of the property, all the ongoing costs, the interest probably won't even be covered by the rent at current interest rate settings, even though they're on the way down. The yields are bad. Take a long time for rents to catch up, and rents are being pushed to their limit as it is. So it's just not a very, in my opinion, good investment. It's a passive, lazy-ish investment, or semi-passive. You don't have to do much. You pay a property manager to get plumbers and shit to go out there, but really there's a lot better things you can do with your money. I'd be buying investment properties in 2025. It was good at least 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that's where it was at. 30 years ago, it's not there now. I'm sure you can still make money, but you can do better with less stress elsewhere, in my opinion.
Audio version and digital version of my book. It's a full property investing blueprint that walks you, which, mind you, I think is flawed. It suggests that prices are likely to rise. But the key thing is that tens of thousands of more buyers will now qualify for this scheme. That means there are so many more buyers who will be able to enter the market from the 1st of October. But we already have a housing shortage. We know that there aren't enough properties for people to buy already. And now
that's it. And look at those. They had those numbers on the screen there. Let's just quickly go back to it. Let's just see if I can get it up. There we go, right? So it's time to save for a 20% deposit. And it has a whole different range of values. So for $1 million house, which isn't, if you're planning on having kids, that's probably what you want to go for. You probably want to just try and go all in early so you don't have to move around. Well, that's one of the strategies. 13 years to save a 20% deposit on the average salary, I'm presuming. 13 years. I don't know how they calculate that, but that's a long time to be grinding your nose to the grindstone, to then get into debt, to then grind your nose to the grindstone until the day you die. Think about the society that we're set up in and the system that we're set up in, that people think that's a good idea. Hey, let's go and just make ourselves debt servants for the rest of our life. And people go and do that without even thinking about it. I've said this to people, about debt slavery and all that. They look at you like you're complete cooker, like you're smoking, you're cooking on the glass Barbie. Lighten up some shard. I just think that's astronomical. And it's what they're saying here. Okay, so let's think about it in these terms. You've got time to save a 5% deposit. They're saying 2 or 3 years. And they're saying, wow, we're really helping you. All right. At the end of the day, they're still putting you in an extra 15% of debt. Yes, they're saying here they're saving rent, and that is true. You're saving rent by getting in quicker if you're renting and not with parents. However, you're being put into a higher quantum of debt, which is going to take you longer to pay off, and the banks are going to get more interest. And the longer you have that loan, the more you're going to be paying.
The market from the
let's move it along.
Going to do when there's so much more demand from buyers who can now afford property, many of them because of this expanded first home buyer incentive scheme, when we don't already have enough properties for sale. Demand is going to be higher, supply is still going to stay low. And we know supply is low because we know the government is trying to build 1.2 million homes, and ignoring all the critics, the Treasury, the Federal Treasury's own modelling, which is the data the government relies on, even they have said that the government's going to fall well short of target. So the government knows it's not going to build enough properties, and now we got...
That's the thing, and they're feigning like they're still on track. I'm not going to get started on all the other things that are happening that I've been ranting and carrying on about. You've heard my views on them recently about, the migration numbers having an effect on property and people telling me I'm off with the fairies for suggesting as such. I'm not even going to get into that. But these are the things that are happening. So we're getting all these houses built and we're getting more and more people coming and they need to have somewhere to live. And what does that do? It pushes up the prices and it reduces availability for people who are already existing citizens to be able to have a somewhat secure life.
More people jumping into the market, this is going to only add fuel to the fire. Now, when you consider that the timing of these incentives, we're getting these extra incentives at a time when interest rates are being cut. So the combination of these two factors, most people underestimate just how much that's going to increase demand and fuel prices higher. I mean, just consider this. After the 3 rate cuts we've had in 2025, the Commonwealth Bank says borrowing capacity has already risen 7%. Now that means that if you have a household income of about $200,000, they can now borrow over $1 million. Now that's something that was out of reach just a few months ago. And so it's no wonder then that pre-approvals have surged. More people taking out loan pre-approvals. That number has increased 12%. And loan applications to banks, if you've tried to go and get a loan application from a bank, you've probably found it's taking longer and longer because loan applications are up 13% compared to this.
There you go. Everyone was saying, G-Man, you're on the glass Barbie, smoking shard. Cooking up the shard, G-Man. Of course that's what's going to happen. Think about it. Put yourself in the position of somebody who is just on the cusp of, you've been saving for years. You're just on the cusp of being able to afford a place. You're going to be, when those interest rates come down, it's going to make your serviceability better, which means you can borrow more money. What's going to happen? People are going to rush to borrow out the max because they want to get in. They want to get in. They can see it. They've got a bit of foresight. Everyone's going to start rushing in. And they would probably due, likely at this point, always subject to change with what happens in this world, 2 or 3 more cuts. I think in this cycle, I don't think it'll be much more than that or be any more than that for that matter. So people are going to run in and they're going to try and beat the herd because there is going to be a herd. Property prices, they're going to keep going up.
This time last year. Then add this into the mix. Westpac's time to buy a dwelling index just hit 97.8 in August of this year. That's a 4-year high and up 37% year on year. So what does this all mean? It means that more and more people are already trying to get into the property market. There is so much more confidence that prices are likely to rise, and more people are trying to buy already before prices rise even further. Now, you add in all these people who can buy from October 1st, and what does that mean? So much more demand. We have lower rates, government incentives, some of the best buying conditions we've seen in years. This is why I'm so confident that we are likely to be on the verge of one of the sharpest price rises in history. Very, very similar to what we saw maybe back in 2021 when prices rose over 20% in a 12-month period in multiple areas around the country. Not everywhere.
Not everywhere. And that's one thing I want to talk about Melbourne. Right? I'm a Melbourne boy. I reckon Melbourne's going to go off, give it 12 to 24 months. It's going to be booming. It's very depressed and it is signalling value. The only thing stopping it is who's running the joint. But that is not what we're going to talk about in this video. Absolutely. Guys, what do you think? Do you think property prices are going to go up? Do you think I'm smoking shard? Let me know. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to engage with you all. So, once again, put it in the comments and like and all that stuff. That is what helps get my videos out there, those engagement metrics. So please do that. It really helps me out.
Where, of course, but multiple areas. So what can you do to take advantage of this opportunity that is right in front of you today? Get your pre-approvals sorted. Work out how much you can borrow so you can start looking at the areas that match your budget which also have the strongest potential for price growth and rental growth. You always want both because you're not here just to buy one property. You want to build a portfolio, right? And the only way that's going to happen, even if you think you can only ever buy one property, the best chance you have of building a portfolio down the track is to look at areas where you can get strong price growth and strong rental growth. Again, even if
I don't know, man. Like as I said, especially with land tax, you want to have a portfolio in Victoria. I think it's nigh impossible, and that's why the prices here are somewhat repressed. You're going to be paying so much land tax. For those of you who don't know, if you have an investment property, you need to pay an annual land tax. It's very expensive. It'd be in the thousands, depending on the capital improved value of the property. To my understanding, I think it encapsulates everything. I could be wrong there. So what they do is they apply a factor, like a multiplier. So say you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 investment properties. They'll show you the base rate on so you get a tax bill, like a notice that comes from the State Revenue Office, and it'll show you what the tax would have been if that was just one singular investment property for each property you listed, if you have a lot. Now, I don't, guys, so don't shoot me. I just know how it works. I've done this before. And then it'll show you the modified value based on the number of properties you have. And I'm telling you now, guys, it is absolutely designed so people don't do this. So, hey, if people want to go and do it, you'll be paying, if you had multiple properties, you're paying tens of thousands in land tax for an investment that most likely you're cash flow negative on. And the only thing you're going to be hoping at some point is to get a capital gain in 10, 20 years down the track that's going to offset all your losses, adjusted for inflation as well, and you make some money at the end. Less all the sales costs, less the capital gains tax, and I believe firmly they're going to fiddle with that. Then they're going to make there'll be no discount on capital gains tax. So it doesn't sound very attractive. Plus, you're going to have to deal with all the stuff that comes with owning a property, which is managing tenants, managing property agents, dealing with stressful things that happen. Things blow up and cost you a lot of money and you're not expecting it. That's my view on investing. I don't think it's really good right now. Yeah, at a very low rate environment like we had, especially during the COVID response period, it was at the floor, people getting interest rates of like 1.95 or something ridiculous. Yeah, okay, it makes sense. You can probably absorb it all. Right now, when you've got investment rates at around high fives, low sixes, you're burning cash. So guys, I'm not sticking up for property investing. I'm saying it's stupid. It doesn't make sense anymore. But people go and do it because it's programmed that you're successful if you're seen to have an investment property or 2 investment properties or 3 investment properties. You're just burning cash. But from the outside, everyone thinks you're wealthy. But you're not. All right, I'm going to leave it there. I've been ranting, guys. But you guys get the picture. Looks like it's going up. Please go and check out this channel, Investment Rise TV. Give him a sub and a like if you enjoy his kind of content. I think he does a really good job. All right, cheers.